Okay, so I think it's up live right now. Welcome to another week of Mental Health Wednesday. As you can tell, we have some awesome guests this week as well. So if we can do a quick round of your name, basically your name, your title, and let's do a favorite middle school memory. Coach, let's start with you.
All right. My name is Coach Cam, um, PLT coach here at Blanca Alvarado. And my favorite middle school memory, it would have to be, wow, it would have to be playing basketball at lunch. Those are some of the times that I learned how to really find my skills and hone in on them. So that's my favorite memory from middle school.
Thank you, Coach. Ms. Ellis?
Hi, everyone. My name is Miss Ellis. I am an assistant principal at Blanca, supporting the humanities and the elementary team. And favorite middle school memory would probably be going on field trips with the chorus because we had a chorus. We got to go to Six Flags and all those kind of fun places.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing, both of you. So we had a discussion about healthy versus unhealthy relationships last week, and now we're moving into honestly, a very big topic in bowling. Miss Laura, do you want to kind of provide a synopsis of the survey and the topic?
Yeah, absolutely. Last week when we were defining what is a healthy and unhealthy relationship, I think that I wanted to let our students know that unhealthy relationships can exist amongst any kind of people that you interact with, even your peers and your classmates, and even with your friends. So, one version of an unhealthy relationship amongst peers and friends is bullying. And so in the video, I talk a little bit about what bullying looks like, whether it's in person or cyberbullying, anyone that just has power over you, that makes you feel bad about yourself, and kind of continues to use that power to get you to do things or act in a certain way, and it just creates harm. It's harm to somebody else, and they might not know that they're doing it, or if they're doing it intentionally, then there are ways to stop being a bully. Either way, both the bullies and the bullied person need to reach out to trusted adults for help to kind of shift the power imbalance and how it might be hurting the other person. And so it is an unhealthy relationship. Unhealthy relationships are harmful to the person at the other end of it that's getting all of the maltreatment. And so I wanted our students to know what are the options for what they can do if they feel bullied and what it kind of looks like, because you might be getting bullied and not even know. If it's somebody who's close to you, like a friend, but this person makes you feel bad and they make comments about you, maybe they even jokingly ruin your property. We need to know what bad relationships look like, or I'm sorry, unhealthy relationships look like, so that we can stop them.
Thank you, Ms. Laura. And so, I mean, with our special guest, just to give our viewers a little bit more context as well, obviously we serve certain contingents at our campus at Blanca Alvarado, but more so at Alpha Public Schools. But specifically, all the members here in this discussion represent kind of a minority of a minority, if you will. So it's nice to give a holistic view, different perspectives from all different angles. So we really do thank both of you for being a part of this discussion. So I'm just gonna jump right into it with bowling. I mean, it looks very different from what it is now. It's I think exacerbated by the fact that technology can serve as a platform for, cancel culture we talked about last week and a bunch of other things, just toxic relationships. But at least when I was growing up, some of the things that still there's still remnants of it left over, in my opinion. But I talked about food when we had
Mhm.
Mrs. Martinez Nava and one of my students' mothers for our discussion. But for me, I think language is another thing that I had to tackle with as being bullied by it. So I remember like around my friends, I would get so frustrated and antsy when my mom would start talking to me in Korean or say my name in Korean or like a different term like son in Korean to me. And I used to be so sensitive. And then like I'm pretty sure my mom noticed it and didn't say anything back then, especially. But like when we go to like a Korean grocery store or an Asian grocery store, I just act normal, if you will, quote unquote. So, and you know, just in the setting that I was in with people that weren't in the queue of like understanding what it was like to be Korean and to look like me, to sound like me. Yeah, I mean, I look back, it just sucked. And I'm glad that it's getting a little better for sure. People understanding. I mean, K-pop is blowing up. Still, like, I don't know how, like, my students ask me about K-pop groups. I'm just like, yo, I don't know that stuff. I'm not into it. Like, I kind of outgrew it a while ago. But at the same time, like, there are, again, those remnants there. And obviously we want to provide perspective. So I would love to hear your experience from both of you. And actually, Ms. Laura too, like as a kid in terms of bullying, when it comes to what you sound like, what you eat, what you talk like, what you look like have you had to tackle some of those things and kind of navigate through that experience with us? If you don't mind, can I jump over to you, Coach?
Yeah, that's fine. With me, I've definitely, especially in middle school, there were times where I felt like I was being bullied, and I didn't sometimes I didn't recognize it because I had some unhealthy friendships or unhealthy relationships, and sometimes that can look like you were saying, some people just joking about something that you're doing or a way you may look or something like that, but they're your friends, but you don't realize that what they're doing, it could be really toxic. What I realized as I'm older now, looking back at those times where I've experienced those things with those people, I realized that there was two things. Number one, I didn't really set any boundaries. Boundaries are really big. For anyone in those kind of spaces with people that are unhealthy, having unhealthy relationships with people, there has to be a boundary set. Like, hey, I'm not going to allow you to talk to me this way, and establishing that or telling them that. Standing up for yourself and saying that. And then also just, I would say the other thing is really just standing up and speaking your mind about how you're feeling about how they're treating you, how someone's treating you. Just that alone will have anybody who's bullying you, if they realize, oh, they're setting a boundary and they're expecting me to follow it. That means if I don't follow it, they're not going to be cool with me anymore. They're not going to be my friend, and I can't do that, but I still want to be around them. So now I have to change the way I show up in this connection, in this friendship, in this relationship. Right. So those are some things that I realized as I got older, that I did struggle with setting those boundaries, and that I did not really recognize my unhealthy relationships and stand up to that person or those people.
Ms. Ellis?
Yeah, I definitely resonate with that. I remember in my middle school, I guess the thing that I recall, especially like with bullying, for a lot of it, it just comes out of a place of fear for people. So you're just fearful that, well, if people don't actually like the same things I like, then what does that actually mean? And if they don't like those things, maybe I should make them feel bad about not liking those things or liking those people. And then it just kind of, the cycle perpetuates, because at my in middle school, there were just certain people, for whatever reason, that were designated, oh, don't talk to them, don't hang out with them, or whatever. And if you do hang out with them, then now, like, we shouldn't be talking to you either. And like in the moment, obviously I didn't want, I wanted to be left alone. I didn't want to be like considered like someone like, ooh, like she's talking to X person, and well, that person, we just think for some reason that person's not cool enough to have like a circle of friends. And so there was just like a lot of just avoidance behavior, because everyone, the people who are being bullied and the bullies themselves, are afraid. And so I wish sometimes that I can go back to my middle school self, or even to just my middle school buddies at the time, and say, regardless of what you do or what you choose to do, like, those other people do not have a long lasting impact on your life. And it does deal a lot with setting the boundaries and learning what those boundaries are for yourself. But at the end of the day, it really boils down to your happiness and your joy and just being able just to be yourself and not feeling like you have to hold back for the sake of other people.
Mhm. Yeah, if I could summarize what I think I heard everyone say is that people have been bullied before because of the differences or being a minority in a community. It could be anything from having a different lunch from people who are sitting next to you to even having like a style of clothing. If I really like the style of clothing and I thought I showed up with a really cool hat, but then I start to get bullied for it, people start making comments, making rumors, just hurting me with their words, even maybe physically, and my safety might be a threat just because I'm different. It's like, why is that something to be made fun of? Why is that not embraced? And that can have very negative impacts for the person that is bullied. They can feel like they are the other in a space, or they are not enough, or that the bully is correct, and that they do have a weird hat or weird clothing or weird food. And so it is a really negative cycle that I think that at Alpha, we should really be the kind of adults that say this is something that we don't tolerate, and that people who bully can make a different choice. If they are intolerant of other people, learn more about another person's culture so that it's not weird and that you can embrace it instead of push people away. If you are angry with what's happening in your home, do not take it out on other people. Do not make somebody feel small just so you can feel big. There are plenty of things that we can do to help both the bullied and the person that is bullying. And so it's not tolerated. It's not okay. The actions that people have when they're trying to make others feel bad, unsafe, or small. And so we can't tolerate that, but we can help people find a different outlet for what might be happening for them. Not to give so much empathy to the person that bullies, because we want to give empathy to the people that should feel safe at school. People should feel safe at school. They should feel like they're not going to be made fun of. And if you're feeling unsafe at school, they should be talking to adults.
Thank you, Ms. Lar. And I think I want to jump into an even broader, more serious, kind of more present and current type of thing. I think one of the worst forms, maybe if not the worst form of bullying, it comes in racism. I kind of touched on it a little bit earlier during the last year and a half or so. I mean, it's always existed, unfortunately, in our history of our country. Obviously, we've made some strides, but there continually are some remnants of it. Specifically speaking of the Black Lives Matter movement within the past year, especially, and then with coronavirus, more recently now, within the last week or so, a lot of the violence specifically targeted towards elderly Asian Americans, not just Asian Americans, but elderly Asian Americans. And bullying in that regard, man, it's forgiveness is hard. You're trying to find out, like we talked about the bullier, like what is causing you to do this or that? What is causing you to say this or that, and how to navigate it? And trying to be empathetic and sympathetic, trying to get all that tension down, what to do in those circumstances. I know you talked about being I think an upstander. So let's start there, Miss Lar. Can you kind of describe what you talked about as being an upstander?
Yeah, an upstander is somebody who stands up for somebody else when they are being bullied. Standing up, in this case, especially injustice, racism, any kind of ism is a form of bullying because they are using power over a different group of people and making them feel bad for who they are. And so that is a really grown-up version of bullying, is racism and all the other isms. So that's a fantastic point. I think I already forgot your question though.
I guess more so now, kind of comparing
Upstander.
what a bystander versus an upstander is too.
Yeah. So a bystander is someone who just stands by and watches injustice happen. They might watch somebody be picked on for being different, or they might just watch somebody being treated differently. It's just someone that doesn't intervene. Versus an upstander is someone that stands up to the bully, to the power, to the oppressors, and they say this isn't wrong, or I'm sorry, this is wrong, and this is what you can do to change it. And so being an upstander takes a lot of courage. it might mean taking some of that heat yourself. But upstanders are really brave. They're heroes in our communities and in our societies because they want to see people being treated equally and better.
And I mean, I think there are some difficult conversations around that too, to be honest. Like, personally with my friends, it's like some folks are just not as social. They're kind of more passive into themselves. And so it's really hard for them to break out of their shell, out of their comfort zones to stand up. But there are different ways to stand up for them. I know a lot of, I personally, maybe you guys may disagree, but I really don't like the phrase, you're a problem, because people are very much using that loosely in so many different contexts. But I think everyone is ready to cancel somebody out or blame somebody. If you're not, like, why aren't you posting, social injustice stuff on your Instagram or Facebook and whatnot? And although I would, encourage others to do it, no one can force you to do any of that. It doesn't make them less of a human being if they don't. If anything, that dialogue needs to be there to have that type of discussion. And people are like, just the way our society is now, we used to talk about things in a friendly manner, in a respectful manner. I mean, it might get aggressive, but we actually had a discussion rather than a debate and an argument. And it's just like, my point is right, there's no other point valid kind of thing. Instead of trying to understand and comprehend everything that's going on, we just rush to those decisions. So in that context, yeah, we would encourage not only the adults but our students. I know it's hard to hear, read, and see all these things, but yeah, I would love to hear some of the things that you guys have to encourage our students and parents and staff as well. What are some things that you would advise? And I'll open up to the floor. I'm not gonna name call anybody, but put it out there. Whoever wants to say anything.
I could say something. I think the best way to really truly be an upstander is to educate yourself. So if there are things that you may not feel comfortable speaking up on, or you don't know exactly how to operate in certain situations, there are lots of resources out there just to teach you, like, so that you can actually learn about the experiences of different other people that are unlike yourselves. And even within like your own like race or culture, there's always more to learn. And so if you are equipped with that education piece, then you can not only just tell someone to stop, but you can actually have some force behind that and some power behind it as well.
I would like to echo a lot of what you said, Miss Ellis. I think really being intentional with learning both narratives. So if you have a certain narrative about what you may think is going on, try to have a conversation with someone who has that opposite, that opposing narrative, or just try to learn a lot more about whatever the situation is for yourself, but being intentional with having those tough conversations with other people, knowing that it's going to be tough and knowing that it's going to be uncomfortable. That alone can set you set you up for more success with finding those solutions or just understanding another point. And then also, I would say, I think that was all I was going to say. Yeah, being intentional with learning and just having those tough conversations with both narratives.
I saw both of you kind of have a reaction around how these kind of isms are just bullying, but grown up. Maybe they're even like bigger on a different scale because there may be some identity around another identity and that kind of bullying. I'm really curious about the identities that either of you hold that make you want to stand up and embrace the identity instead of being put down for it, because we have a lot of students that are afraid to be different because they might be bullied or being made fun of. And so if there's anything that any of you could say to encourage our students to embrace their differences despite the bullies that could be everywhere, but that I think Miss Ellis, you had said they're going to be bullies anywhere, so be yourself.
I think the one thing I will add to what Coach was talking about, those uncomfortable conversations. Sometimes, like Miss Ellis talked about fear, for example, sometimes those conversations can cause us to become a little afraid or scared in some sense too. But we got to have that kind of courage and bravery to tackle those things and not simply just run away. Because a lot of the times, I mean, I will bring up religion like on the surface level. Sometimes, like even like I grew up in a very prominent Christian family, and there's other denominations of Christians as well. It's like, whoa, that's really different from what I do and what I practice and whatnot. And then I found out about Islam, having friends in that background, and Catholicism and Buddhism and Hinduism, and it's just like, whoa, this is so different. So much is going on. But then at the same time, you're like, wow, this is really interesting and fascinating. And just to have, like, I talked about it with Miss Laura in other discussions, but like one of those gateways was food. We shared food together and the importance of food. And over a meal, we just talked about things. We found out the similarities, we found out the differences, we found out the emphasis and the meanings behind those similarities and differences. So yeah, that's what we mean, students and parents and staff, about having dialogue and having an open mind, rather than assuming certain things as well, to bully them about it, to put them down. Yeah, we gotta be more brave. Like, it's not just an America issue, it's a societal issue. If we go to other countries, unfortunately, some of this still, like, there are certain minority groups, if you read about in China, that are really discriminated, or in Europe that are discriminated. Yeah, this is a human issue. So having that open discussion and being open to just listen. And we talked it in the early stages of our mental health discussions between Miss Laura and I, but like letting them talk, giving them the space, respecting that. And then in reverse, I'm going to do the same thing. They're going to listen to everything I have to say. So those are very simple practices that we really just got to push ourselves and be to be able to harness. On that note, with the last few minutes, sorry, Miss Laura, I just wanted to put this question out there. I guess it's kind of somewhat related. I mean, personally, in some way, like embracing Black culture, like I grew up with, I mean, again, no one's perfect, but I was heavily influenced by like Michael Jackson, Tupac, Notorious B.I.G. I mean, Kobe Bryant was a big part of me. And Coach, you and I have, had some talks about that here and there. I mean, like being athletes and some of the things, some of the people we look up to, whether it's, again, musicians, athletes, celebrities, movie stars. What do you have in advice in terms of embracing that? And I will speak on like Asian culture. I think, there's a sense of conversation about like cultural appropriation, for example, like the attire you wear. Like some people wear like a very traditional clothing from Koreans and put themselves and take it lightly and not respect the heritage and the traditions behind it. So again, I think that's where it's also very important to have that discussion, research, like understand what you're doing, why you're doing it. Essentially, those are baseline things. So for Asian culture, like a lot of the stuff I heard when I was a kid, like derogatory terms, when you hear my language, for example, please don't rush into that. Like, and again, we encourage you to stand up for what is right. Okay, without really even mentioning race, ethnicity, and color. Like, if it's right and if it's wrong, I think we know that our conscience tells us that human beings, if someone's being persecuted, essentially. Okay, if an elderly man in San Francisco is on a daily walk and he gets shoved randomly out of nowhere and dies from those complications, that's wrong. That's an obvious thing without even tackling the other stuff. So we encourage our students, parents and students, everybody, we all need to do a better job and take a stand. And again, there are multiple ways to take a stand. So that's what I will say, and I'll leave the floor open to everybody else with the last few minutes.
Coach, I think you're about to say something.
Yeah, just before I can get into that, Mr. S, everything you just said is like you hit the nail right on the head. Like just being aware of the influences and where things originate, and just having an appreciation for any type of thing, anything that comes with Black culture or any culture for that matter. Just making sure you know the history and you do the research and you understand why something became a thing. But to go back a step, I was going to say, when it comes to how do you embrace your differences.
Yeah.
That's something that I really love about, for one, sports, but specifically for me, physical education, because one of the things that I make sure to do, and I think one of the things that we sometimes forget, that within sports, you have so many different people, so many different backgrounds, different religions, different everything, boys, girls, all those kind of things. But when you're in that environment, when you have a common goal to work towards with people, all of a sudden, all those differences go away and you just embrace what you are in that moment. And that's one thing that I really love about being a PLT coach and in the realm of physical education, because you have to break down those barriers in order to have a successful team. Your team is not going to get anywhere if there's just one person on that team carrying all the load, or if there's only one type of a person on that team. For basketball's sake, you need a point guard, shooting guard, power forward, small forward, and a center. You cannot have a team full of 5 point guards. There has to be different skill sets. So I think that's really important, to find those spaces, create that space with people that are different, and try to find a way to have tough conversations, all that, but also try to reach a common goal with a group. And that's how all those differences will kind of go out the window when you have that space to do that.
Any last remarks, Ms. Ellis?
I think that cultures are just so rich and beautiful. There's just so much to embrace. And it kind of goes back to just our earlier comments about just informing yourself, and just making sure it's coming from a place to where you really just want to celebrate that culture, and not wearing it as a quote unquote costume. But yeah, just informing yourself, asking those questions, having those conversations that need to be had. But at the end of the day, everyone wants to feel good in their own skin, and like people love that acknowledgement as well.
Perfect. Thank you. I think in the end, and Ms. Ellis, if you have to sign off, thanks for joining us. In the end, I think we really just want to remind each other that we need to treat each other with kindness, respect, and curiosity. Those are the 3 things that are going to be the most helpful in trying to minimize the bullying people based on differences and having those unhealthy relationships at school. Like I said, school is where you should be safe from feeling different and feeling made fun of for being different. And so just a reminder that all of our teachers and all of our staff, we don't tolerate this kind of behavior. We want to help you find a different way to engage with people and have healthy relationships. And so if you've been bullied or you are the bully, the only way to really stop these interactions are to talk to an adult, talk to any one of us. I'm sure we would love to talk to you no matter who you are and what's happening in your life, because we can always help in some way, whether it's getting you connected to resources or even just being a listening ear. I know that both Coach and Mr. S are very good at being supports for our students in that regard.
Thank you. Again, we really want to shout out Coach Cam and Ms. Ellis for joining us. This is a big topic. Obviously, there's a lot more to discuss beyond half an hour. We encourage that conversation to go on for our viewers out there. But thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you guys next week. Enjoy your February break.
Yeah, take care.